Hey, it's been a little while since I've done one of these kind of cold open disclaimers right before the show. This one's relatively simple. I've been feeling a little bit sick lately. Nothing too bad, but just I'm a little stuffed up and still making some unfortunate noises at sometimes. I'm going to do my best to keep them out of the recording and certainly to edit out as many as I can, but some of them, if they wind up just being crucial parts that I didn't re-record, I'm sorry if they make it in and they're awful to listen to. As I said, I'm going to do my best to minimize them on my end, but just forewarning, I may sound a little bit different and there may be some unpleasant noises at times. Hopefully not. All that out of the way, enjoy the show.
Stranded in space on a ship crashing into the atmosphere of an unknown planet, Emile Spencer knew that the only way to survive would be by his own wits and guile. He vowed that somehow he would find and slay the titanic cosmic beast that put him in this predicament, VY572. With every installment, we follow Emile's explorations and discoveries on this journey of revenge against all odds. I'm Midnight Jester, and this is the Left Behind Starforge series.
Let's get it. So last time, well, not technically last time, but the last session that was in character with Emile Spencer, that's right, we're no longer doing the GM stuff. We had 2 sessions of that, and we're back to the actual main storyline. So where we last left off with that, it's not a great time for Emile, is the short version of it. I mean, just looking at his stats to start off with that. We'll be starting today's session with 0 momentum, 1 health, 0 spirit, shaken. We got 3 supplies, so that's okay. And the starship itself has some pretty good integrity. A whole lot of things by the numbers are not wonderful for Emile. And situationally, he was being accompanied by the Beowulf, captained by the famous tycoon of the Vault Hunters, being escorted immediately to go to a place on the planet that we now know as Taiga. It's a planet within the sector Invidia Gate. They've been traveling over this way. Emile is being accompanied over to a salvage yard in the settlement of Vega on Taiga. The Beowulf is accompanying him here. It's there that Emile is going to pick up the power core that he's already got kind of not commissioned, but like set aside for him. It's been paid for as part of his agreement with Deuce way long ago now. Emile's going to pick that up. He's going to be accompanied on his immediate return back to Cinder to be able to give the people of Concord the power core that he has been vowing to bring back to them to help make amends for all of what went down there even longer ago. Now, in order to do all of this, the last session that we had in this storyline, Emile had to basically abandon his course to try and take care of a situation involving the Wooden Heart. He had made a vow to Fern to rid the Wooden Heart's influence from his ship, and because he was not able to do that the way he wanted to, he had to fall back on the backup plan, which was to just eject the captain who was kind of possessed by this presence of the Wooden Heart, eject him out an airlock, leave him to the cold reaches of space to die. And as far as Emile is concerned, that's what happened, and it's why he is so shaken now for having had to just commit this murder. Now, we know that, actually, due to the power of the Wooden Heart, the captain was able to survive the vacuum of space long enough to get inside the habitation module, and from there move on and continue the Wooden Heart's agenda. But that's happening in the background now. I'm sure that'll never be relevant ever again. So we left off, the Stardust and the Beowulf had gone together on this journey. They've plotted a course to get over to Invidia Gate, the new sector. Emile had some time to do some amount of trying to recover a little bit during that journey, but not really. It didn't go all that well. We had some really bad rolls last time, and it's what left us in this terrible situation numbers-wise. Now, as I look at all of this here, getting ready to start back up and resume play, if we're going to get out of this tailspin, it's going to depend on building up some momentum. So with that in mind, we're going to start this off with the full-on begin a session move. We're going to try and envision a vignette. So we've done our recap of what happened last time, or well, last time enough. Now it's time for us to set the scene by envisioning our character's current situation and intent. Right now, we When we fully get back into this, the biggest issue is going to be Emile's the Stardust and the Beowulf are going to encounter that there's actually a blockade in between these two sectors. This new sector that we're going into is the first time that we have gone into, like, Imperium space. This is no longer the Outlands. This is the Terminus. There is an Imperium ship that is trying to set up a blockade to keep unsanctioned travel from inside the Terminus to the Outlands, trying to prevent that from happening because it is a popular route for outlaws and vault hunters, and indeed, there are some vault hunters that are accompanying Emile right now, so they are trying to make sure that only the right people can go in and out of this area, and ensure that no contraband or anything is being brought into the Terminus. That whole situation is what we're going to be dealing with when we resume play. But as for the vignette, this time I'm going to roll. There is a table along with this begin a session move to kind of inspire a new vignette, because I want to do something. I need this +1 momentum that we'll get for doing it. And what I roll for it is... key location is made unsafe or becomes mired in conflict. Now, when I think of that, when I think of like a conflict and a key location, based on everything I was just saying, my mind goes back to the fact that Emile ejected the captain, Zoya, out of the airlock. We talked last time about how Emile was doing that very surreptitiously. He was trying to cover up for it so that the Beowulf didn't know. He was kind of doing things on the computer while narrating his confirmation of their travel plans and everything. He was really trying to hide his actions. And so I think this conflict is going to be the discovery of the fact that Zoya is not in the cell anymore. And Vert and Dash might have some questions about that. So let's do a little bit of a vignette. This is something that would have happened during the journey. So like the ship is currently in one of its long jumps. This is during just kind of the downtime where they have to just kind of wait out the distance. And I want to say that, let's say this happens inside of Emile's just kind of like bunk room, like just where he sleeps. We've never actually seen the inside of it before. We've never explored what Emile's personal space would look like, or well, what he has made into his personal space now that he's taken over this ship. I think I want to say, for a couple of reasons, that Emile's space is the workshop. You know, we recently purchased the workshop module for this starship. We've upgraded it. We've allowed it to be possible for Emile to take on some truly long-term projects here. And I think this would be in his personal space. Like, Emile kind of sleeps in the office. It's that sort of thing. And, like, there is a bed and everything in here. He's not just, like, falling asleep at a work table, but it's all the same space. He likes to be close to it, to be able to just have moments of inspiration, to go tinker with something. It's part of what de-stresses him at times. And perhaps even that's what's going on right now, is Emile is in the middle of... let's say he's just doing some regular kind of maintenance on his own personal computer. The device he wears on his hip at all times, all part of his augmented reality system. I think this is just one of his ways of kind of self-soothing. There's nothing currently wrong with it. It's just kind of routine cleaning and maintenance to make sure that ideally nothing does become wrong with it. He's just doing diagnostic testing. It's all kind of disassembled into various parts on the table, maybe replacing some of the things that look a little bit weaker or like a little bit worn out, taking little like alcohol swabs and just cleaning off parts of circuitry that could use a little bit of help. That sort of just really meticulous, slow, methodical work that allows Emile to just kind of step away from all of it right now. Like, I would imagine this is the type of thing that he would probably be doing even with like some manner of like earbuds, just listening to music, like really ambient music too. So he's just at the table working on all of this, kind of trying to disassociate from the rest of the problems of the world and just focus on solving this one task. And there's a knock on his door, and I don't think he hears it at first, but the knock comes a little bit louder. And let's say, because I think it would be a little bit more dramatic and fitting for this being like a real conflict, let's have this be further tension between Emile and Vert. Vert might tell Dash later, but I think Vert is the first one to go over to check on Zoya Silva and find that he's not in there. The cell is completely empty. And so Emile eventually does hear the harder pounding of the armored fist on the door. Eventually notices it, kind of takes the earbuds out and steps over and pushes the button on the inside of his door to open it up. And so he sees Vert there, just kind of with a bit of a confused expression on his face. I don't think Vert is immediately angry because he's not yet sure what happened. In fact, right now, he starts off by telling Emile, "Emile, I got some bad news, I think. I went to go check on Zoya. He's not in his cell. I've been looking all around the ship. I've seen no signs of where he went. I don't know if he's sneaking about or what, but we might have a problem." And Emile, in this moment, recognizes that the truth is going to get out there eventually. And he just wants to get ahead of it and says, "No. On the contrary, we're not going to have any more problems with Zoya." I don't understand. What does that mean? I mean that he was a danger to the ship, and I made an executive decision as captain of this ship, and we're not taking Zoya with us anymore. And Vert is clearly like waiting for him to add more. He's just like staring Emile down, pressing him for more information. And Emile's not even looking him in the eyes. He's very much, eyes cast towards the floor, barely able to put words to all of this, and just says, to be blunt, I have ejected him out the airlock because he posed a risk to everybody on board, and certainly a risk to our relationship with the Beowulf and with the people of Concord. If we had him all the way back to there was no time to do anything about it, and I made a decision. He's not here anymore. And Vert just like slams his fist on the side of the door, and Emile flinches. Just this big thud as his gloved fist hits the metal wall, and just goes, "God damn it, Emile. We vouched for you as a good person, somebody who could be trusted. What does this say about it all? How little is it going to take for you to vent Dash and I? If we become a bit of a nuisance, are we next? Do we have to keep our eye on you to that level? To not be just murdered helplessly?" And Emile is just like trying to respond but can't get a lot. He's like, we could have taken him. He was no danger. He was locked up in a cell, and if he even tried to get out of there, you know that I would have been ready. The three of us working together would have been ready. There was no way that you needed to do that. I made a promise, okay? And look, before when we tried, it didn't go so well before. When me and you went to go deal with Zoya and try and he threw you into the cell. It didn't work so well. I had to do it. It didn't work so well because you were getting in my way, distracting me, being a fucking nuisance. It went complicatedly because you didn't just leave him in the cell. You had to open up and do something risky. And Emile is again just... He's not even really forming coherent responses. He's too shaken to really support his side of the argument especially well. And so it leaves Vert room to kind of dictate the conversation, and the main point that it ends on is just Vert saying to him, "Clearly having another ship here watching over you isn't enough. We need to watch you in person. From now on, I'm not letting you out of my sight. Wherever you go, I go. Whatever you do, I'm watching you and making sure that you're not about to do something to the rest of us. Slimy son of a bitch. You may eventually fool the rest of them. You may get this power core and bring it back and make good on everything that you claim, but you're never pulling the wool over my eyes. I see you. I see you for what you are, and I'm not gonna let what you are out of my sight." And Vert indeed just like takes a post at the door, just being a sentry in this room. Just Emile gets back to work awkwardly on what he was doing, kind of reassembling his computer. Every once in a while, just kind of looking over his shoulder and seeing Vert just standing sentry over him. And so until Emile does anything to change anything, he is not going to have privacy to do anything especially surreptitiously. I mean, he might be able to pull it off just because Vert doesn't know a lot about like anything Emile might be doing technologically, but certainly any actions that he takes will be supervised unless he specifically finds a way to like escape or hide what he's doing from Vert. So with that little vignette done, let's take our +1 momentum, getting us to a total of 1 momentum out of a current maximum of 9 since we're shaken. God, I want so badly to take the time for Emile to try and heal up some of this stuff, but we already said last time, like, we have represented all that he had time to try and recover from. It's not a great place. He's just going to have to deal with this for a bit. But all of what happened there was in the past. So the last little leg of this journey, we now know Vert was watching Emile like a hawk throughout all of it. And it's probably leading to why Emile is still shaken and his spirit is so low. Like, being that directly supervised, it's just uncomfortable. He's not been able to feel any kind of relief when seeing that at any moment, this kind of behemoth of a man in powered armor and with a powerful gun is watching to make sure that he likes everything that Emile is doing. And Emile isn't trying to do anything problematic, but still, it's just very uncomfortable. But we catch up now to the real problem at hand. The Beowulf and the Stardust are coming out of the last jump that leads them into Invidia Gate. They're ending their journey, and they see out ahead on sensors, there is a big, big fleet of ships waiting right there. These are clearly official Imperium ships that are ready to deal with anybody going back and forth. Now, we did not roll this journey using Shadow or anything. I mean, technically we didn't do any of them. We did set a course. So I guess we didn't have the opportunity to roll Shadow. Let's maybe determine right now whether or not either ship is able to notice ahead of time that there is a blockade there. Now, here's my argument in favor of them knowing in advance. The Beowulf is a Vault Hunter ship. It's been all over and is used to being, like, they are full outlaw status. They have to be very vigilant about the Imperium ships and presumably pretty knowledgeable about their tactics. In addition to that, we have described Tycoon as being especially wise about this sort of thing and cautious. You know, the planet Umbra, we've now determined, which they're going up to. Tycoon was the one that alerted everybody to it being a trap. There is a vault in the center there, but it was a trap for all the Vault Hunters. So I think he in particular would be likely to know in advance this is going to be a problem and to watch out for it. You know, if this is some famous path in and out, I think Tycoon would be more likely to have anticipation of that sort of thing. I am still going to leave it to the dice, so I'm going to ask the Oracle, but I'm going to put the odds at, let's see, likely or almost certain. Maybe just likely. I don't think we have enough justification for it being specifically something like, I guess the best argument for almost certain is indeed like this is the area. This is literally going to the trap. But we don't know if he's been here recently. Like, that story was from a long time ago. I think I'm just going to leave it at likely. So is between Emile and the Beowulf, or between the Stardust and the Beowulf, are they able to notice the Imperium ships before they are spotted? With likely, and we get, yes, they are able to. But indeed, had that been any less likely, if I had gone 50-50, it wouldn't have happened. So we see them, they come out of their warp, jump, whatever you want to call it in this universe. I guess I've been calling it jumps lately, but they come out of this, and perhaps what this represents is that, you know, when Tycoon and the Beowulf were working out this route with Dash, they pre-calculated this sort of anticipation move of, you know, they did a slightly different version of calculating some jump coordinates that allowed them to come out of this warp a little bit farther away from sort of the typical path and not as directly right there on Umbra. They're not too far away. They're at a distance now where they could still get there with more standard engines, like not having to fully spin up their jump, nothing like that. But they come out perhaps close to a sun or something that's like they kind of can blend in against, or like it obscures some amount of scanning, so that they have an ability to better take in they have a better ability to take in their environment and make sure it's safe before proceeding. And this is like some Vault Hunter tactic that or at least something that Tycoon is frequently a fan of just really being cautious about it, coming out in places that are maybe a little bit more physically dangerous. You know, they're a little risky. You gotta get to just the right coordinate to not go too far, but they're a little bit more secluded. And when you're living your life on the run and going into the terminus, you gotta use techniques like this. And as a result, they are indeed able to determine that, hey, yeah, there is actually a blockade there watching out for people coming in, and this needs to be dealt with. Just because I can, let's get in for a little bit of flavor. I'm going to find out what sort of sun this is, because we never did that. We never did anything like that for this sector, and let's see what we got. All right, so I've rolled a smoldering red star. Maybe this one is... I'm not entirely sure why I even rolled this, because I don't know that I personally as a player know enough about stars to really take from that and know much about what that would mean. I don't take my word for what this means, but it being a smoldering red, maybe this is a very old star that was not of a like it's not one that went supernova or anything. It's just kind of burning out. This is I think that's what that implies. And so perhaps as a result of that, this would be one that Emile can kind of feel, you know, since he gets charged up by this sort of solar radiation and the exposure to the sun's rays. He builds that up for his like EMP effect. Perhaps he has a better connection to that now and feeling that like this sort of light, it's not that it wouldn't charge him up, but it would definitely take longer. Like he can feel that it's just so much weaker in the way that it interacts with his body. And so in order to like get the opportunity to really rest and meditate and gather this energy, it's going to take him an even longer period of time than usual. And he definitely doesn't have that moment right now because, you know, at this point, he's certainly in the cockpit as they're finishing up the jump and getting ready to kind of set a new trajectory and start flying to places a little bit more manually, work on calculating the next, presumably, as far as Emile was planning, calculate the next sort of decisions on how they're going to get from Umbra to Taiga, because that's not a charted path. He's ready to talk with the Beowulf about all of this when he receives this message. And I wonder if there's a way to do this that's a little bit more secretive. Like, because if you just radio over, if you're trying to stay secret, you know, what's to say that doesn't carry over to the very blockade you're trying to hide from right now. So I wonder if there's a way to more secretly send that sort of message. Maybe this would be the sort of like tight beam connection that's just kind of an encrypted signal that's sent directly from one ship to the other, like aimed at Emile's ship, goes over, Emile receives this, and he's plenty capable enough to be able to work out the encryption and stuff. Like it's all just pre-established computer stuff that they probably even worked out over the course of the journey. Like, actually, I don't know. I don't know that Emile would have had any reason. Like they haven't really had time. Everything was all in a rush, and maybe they haven't really had a chance to establish these sorts of good communications. And so, in part of my attempt to try and build momentum here, while yes, Emile is definitely going to be able to crack this, that's not the dramatic tension here. I think Emile wants to use this as an opportunity, because in cracking it, he wants to learn a little bit about the way the Beowulf does their own security and like learn from them. Like, can we glean from this more about the ways they might encrypt things on their own end? Like what systems they use, or any kind of markers that are in there in the data that he might be able to set aside and kind of collect as different samples of, you know, how does their computer system encrypt things? Can he eventually reverse engineer that if he ever needs to more easily break into things on their end? So we're going to do this as a secure and advantage, because again, he'll bypass this encryption with his computer and everything. That'll definitely happen, but I don't know if he'd be able to learn from this as he's trying to, and that is indeed his attempt to gain leverage. So this is a secure and advantage with wits, and technically you could say that I'm hacking an electronic system, kind of. I'm hacking electronic security. Yeah, we're in dire enough straits. I'll give myself the leeway to say that counts. I try not to let tech apply to just everything, but I think it's a reasonable argument here. He's sort of hacking an electronic system. It should help him here. So, wits with a +1, and if we need to, on a weak hit, as we recall, we can press our luck. and re-roll all the dice with a +2 instead of a +1. But let's see if we even have to do that. So here we go. Wits with a +1. We get... well, it did come up. We have a weak hit here. I rolled a 10 and a 1 on my challenge dice and just a 1 on my action die. Pretty bad roll overall. My odds of doing better than this are pretty good, especially if re-rolling this and getting a +2, so I am indeed going to press my luck on this. Well, okay, here's the thing. I could just walk away with just the 2 momentum right here, because I'd still get that on a weak hit. But I could have both that and a +1 on my next move, and like, I'm probably going to need all the help I can get. So yeah, let's do it. My odds are good at doing better. Wits with a +2 as we re-roll all the dice. Let's see what happens. Oh yeah, and it pays off. I get a strong hit instead, so I will indeed take 2 momentum right now, and I get a +1 on my next move. So indeed, Emile is able to do exactly what I described. Like, he's filing away this information about how, like, as he's decrypting this, his computer is saving his, like, personal one on probably both, actually. He's saving it to, like, his ship's computer so that it can more easily decrypt things faster in the future if there are more tight band communications, and his own personal one, which is perhaps set up to do its own kind of long-form analysis. Like, it's nothing that can be completely done in this moment, but he's able to start that process going, and that's part of why it's a full strong hit, not a weak hit. There are background processes that are going to scrutinize, analyze all the ISs to basically make a report for him that it can use to make some educated guesses about bypassing future encryption. And importantly, of course, he does also find this message, which is a quick communication that tells him that, yeah, it's from Tycoon, and it mentions that clearly, I think it's just plain text, so it's not like a voice recording or anything. Clearly, the need to come in more hidden was necessary. It points out that their more sophisticated scanners have picked up there is a blockade between the typical path and Umbra. Imperium ships no doubt looking to verify identities of all passing in and out of the terminus. Let's see. Would it come with a recommended course or instruction for Emile? Certainly at the very least that all communications between them should be tight band and encrypted. It would definitely say that, like, don't do anything over radio. But also, let's see, would he give any suggestions about how to proceed, or would he be looking for input from Emile? Now, as we discussed, like, he's plenty familiar with this situation, so it seems more likely that he would have a recommended course of how to do this. So what would Tycoon suggest they do? Well, maybe... So the Stardust is definitely a smaller ship than the Beowulf. I think maybe for a few reasons. One being, I think it would work best for the game, but also the situation, it kind of makes sense. I think this is a greater fleet than the Beowulf is expecting. They don't think that they'd be able to get past it unseen. And so I think they are looking for a distraction. And after all, there are 2 ships here. Let's say that Tycoon is recommending that Emile just directly deal with, like, on radio with the blockade, stall them, because it's going to be it's kind of like a border crossing. I mean, it basically is, where they may well want to send people on the ship to investigate everything, search for any kind of contraband, stuff like that. It's a thorough processing thing that's going to take a while, and Emile will be able to, in that moment, deal with, keep the fleet distracted as best as possible. And perhaps that's an area where Tycoon is more open to Emile's interpretation and say, like, you use your best judgment on how to do that, because we need the entire fleet distracted, not just the one ship. Find a way to draw their attention while we sneak around. He definitely would put in there that, like, we will definitely still have our eyes on you. Do not disappoint us. And so, again, if Emile were just after his own interest right now, and he just wanted to get away from the supervision of the Beowulf, this would be a golden opportunity. They're a ship full of outlaws. The Imperium has a big fleet of ships right here. They could totally help him just capture or destroy the Beowulf, and he'd no longer have their influence just, like, pushing him down. Like, he could get a lot of help right now. But once again, even though this situation all sucks, he really is trying to make amends to the people of Cinder. He doesn't want to screw them over, even though it would by far be the easier path right now. So I think Emile just he's going to send back a confirmation that message received. And let's see. He needs to come up with a plan here. And I need to think for a moment as a player about like how would Emile indeed best distract all of them? Because again, like I'm sure it wouldn't take the entire fleet to scan his ship. They would want other people to still be paying attention in case other ones come. Like they're not stupid. Emile might need to have something that's like mild contraband or like something that complicates the situation where like he can maybe prove that it's not his, but it's like something that would warrant enough investigation that it could distract the other ships to like bring in others to really be dealing with what they found. So what if Emile were able to secure something to like the outside of his ship or something that was, it's it looks like a tracking device or something, or like some kind of thing that clearly like it comes from a different ship. It makes it look like it comes from a Vault Hunter ship or something that was like attached to his underbelly, like something done in a way that doesn't look like he would have done it to himself, that they can then, the first ship looks around, they find it, they scan his ship, they find this thing, and it seems like it would be like a big enough deal to raise a flag in the system and draw additional attention from other people in the fleet, where they figure out what's going on. Emile would have to defend himself against it and find a way to demonstrate that like he's surprised by it and it couldn't have come from him, and maybe that would buy enough time and enough distraction for the Beowulf to get through. Now the important question then is, how does he set up this situation in a way that at least seemingly proves it couldn't have come from him, or that at least it probably wouldn't have? Like, how does he not just get taken into custody? Maybe he can get the Beowulf to actually indeed make this device and have some kind of ties to them, something that doesn't come from his ship. Oh, also, let's not forget this big fucking problem. Emile is in a stolen Imperium ship that a bunch of Vault Hunter prisoners were last known to take into their custody as part of a prison break, and now Emile is flying it. Maybe we need to deal with that problem with Emile causing it. I mean, I suppose that would be a distraction in and of itself, that Emile is flying. The ship itself is a problem, so that would certainly be a distraction. All he would have to do is just expose himself there, and that would raise all kinds of alarms. The problem is, how does Emile not just get arrested and taken into custody in that moment? How is he able to make it seem like he is... And how does he get to keep his ship afterwards? Because like maybe he could find some way to make it seem like he was completely unaware and the ship just kind of traded hands, and I think it would be a hard argument to make, because I think for anybody in the know, it's very obviously an old Imperium ship. It's a prison transport ship. I think he'd have a hard time making that argument, and he certainly wouldn't get to keep the ship when it's all done. So I need to rethink, like, how does he get away with this, or cause some kind of distraction and still get to leave without just like bolting and becoming a fugitive in his own right? Because I don't think Emile wants to do that. I mean, he might have to utterly disguise what his ship is somehow first. Or there is another option. And this would be a bit of a tricky one. All right, what if we don't actually need the Stardust anymore? Like, yeah, that is my current command vehicle. And yes, we do have a medbay module on it and a workshop module. Like, we have all these things that make it pretty unique. But what if this is more trouble than it's worth to fly around in this current, like, fugitive ship? We have the Beowulf right here. Maybe this is an opportunity to start considering the Beowulf the command vehicle instead. And, maybe port over as much as we can over to there. Like, Emile thinks that maybe that's actually the best course. We can take the time while we're hidden here in the interference of the star to, like, take all the important stuff, consolidate, just move everybody over to the Beowulf. Emile joins that crew. It'll become the new command vehicle with Emile not as the captain, just somebody serving on it. If they don't have a medbay of their own, like we can transfer all of the kind of equipment over slowly. We can transfer his workshop stuff over there. Like, we can get all the things that I've paid for with experience over there. Emile just needs to make that argument that, like, that's what's worth it. And that he's not... He basically needs to convince them that he's not pulling a fast one. Like, this just is the best choice. And it's a move because they don't trust him. So we definitely need to make a compel roll here. And let's remember that I have a +1 on this because of our secure and advantage that we got a strong hit on. And perhaps the reason why that's helping us on here is just that he's able to, like, it doesn't take him as much time to send them the process between encrypting a message and decrypting and all that, like, all of their back and forth communications can happen more quickly, which just inherently helps it happen and be understood better. There aren't so many delays to really start interpreting too much about, like, implied meanings and stuff. Like, it's more of a direct communication where there are fewer options for miscommunication. So Emile's going to make that argument where he's like, he sends back a message saying that the problem with that is my ship is hot. Don't forget this is a stolen prison transport ship that a different section of the Vault Hunters took long ago. There is no way that there is no way that the appearance of this ship would be anything but fraught with danger and my arrest. I cannot be the distraction in this ship. However, the ship is a major distraction. They have not spotted us. We are in a position of relative security right now with the interference of this sun. Let us take the time to just move everything of value onto your ship. We will join crews together. This way you can entirely control. There won't even be an opportunity for me to try and divert course because we're all on the same ship that you'll be captaining. You can make sure that I get the new power core and bring it back. It's the only way I see forward. We set this ship coasting towards them at a relatively slow speed. It will definitely grab their attention, and they will want to scrub it for everything to find out what exactly happened. As a result of this, it's going to take some time to prepare this ship. Not only do I need to move all the important things, equipment, personnel, not only is that going to take time to move everything onto the Beowulf, I need the opportunity to scrub the ship's logs and surveillance of anything they could use to track either of us. It's going to take time. So first off, let's do the initial compel roll, which is basically, it's just trying to persuade very specifically. I mean, it's all of that, but the most important part is convince them that the best idea is use the Stardust itself as a distraction, an empty Stardust that they'll then take lots of time checking into, and that Emile, Dash, and Vert, and Fern should all come aboard the Beowulf, as well as all the equipment. Like, it's that whole concept. This is the offer Emile's putting on the table. This is definitely a heart offer. He's basically kind of bartering here. So let's do our heart with a +1, and let's see what we get. Okay, we have a miss. So they refuse, or make a demand that costs you greatly, pay the price. I think I'm more interested in, like, I like this idea. I don't want to, especially because I'm having trouble coming up with good alternatives for, like, what is a good plan for that's not just, like, outrun them. I guess that would be the plan, is just outrun. But I don't know that Tycoon would, like, be that interested in it. I don't think he wants to draw that kind of hot attention. That doesn't sound like his style, especially because he was the one who proposed the distraction to begin with. So I want to lean more in the direction of make a demand that costs you greatly, pay the price. I think it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of not being able to just move these modules over. That there's not enough time for that. The medbay itself would be way too complicated to unhook all of that and bring it over and everything. That could easily be days and days of work to do that properly, so it would be of any usage. And moreover, like, perhaps there's not even a good spot for it there. So no, I think it's just more the time. It's the reason he would be refusing to those terms is just what Emile is describing would take way too long to pull off. eventually the cover they have from this sun, like he points out how, it's this dying sun, like it's only even blocking them so well. That's not going to be enough. It's not going to buy them safety for long. They cannot afford to spend that much time over there. So the cost me greatly on this is going to certainly cost me as a player. In order to pull this off, I'm going to have to leave behind the medbay module entirely. I think the workshop is simple enough, like that's things that could be grabbed and moved over relatively quickly. It's not complicated medical equipment hooked up to computers and stuff that would be a whole process. The workshop is more easily, it's tools and stuff, but it's a lot easier to pack that stuff into a crate with less delicate processes and like move it over. So yeah, the pay the price is I have to lose a module basically when we move over to this other ship. And yeah, I'm good with that. I prefer that to just trying to outrun them right now. I don't think we would fare very well, and it would just be a bad time. So we don't have the time for the full medbay moving over, but Emile is still going to try and work in a little bit of time to do, like, maybe he can argue for at least enough time to scrub the surveillance, because that's a danger to both of them. So he's going to come back with this sort of counter argument of that, of like, that, yeah, like, he agrees, he concedes that the medbay would be too complicated, but surely it is worth the risk to spend the time to go through deleting security information, potentially even leaving something misleading behind. Something that would throw them off the trail has got to be worth the danger. And that will take a little bit of time, but we're talking hours, not days. So again, we're going to do a heart roll this time without a +1 because he hasn't done anything really to earn that. I mean, is there anything I want to do? Is there any way I can justify another secure an advantage? So again, I need all the help I can get right now. Yeah, okay, I've got it. So, and this will lean into things he's good at. Emile is going to try and punctuate this point by, as he's composing this message and getting it encrypted, he is going to take the time to include, select things that he has found from security that specifically would incriminate the Beowulf. Things like some of the external cameras showing how close they were as ships, that you can totally find identifying information, and flight log stuff, and all the times from their interactions and communications that are part of this ship, and that Emile just demonstrates, like, all this stuff is stored on here. It's just demonstration that this is a danger to you. He includes, like, times that he and Dash were talking about Tycoon to find out, like, who this guy was. Like, Tycoon is called out by name. Emile is attaching all this stuff into the message to try and... right now he's securing an advantage, trying to culminate enough good demonstrations of, like, this is why it is worth our time to actually purge this stuff first. And so this is definitely going to use his tech asset, because he needs to... This is him configuring an electronic system, working as quickly as he can to collate all of this stuff into a convenient package without taking a lot of time. It has to do... His familiarity with the system will be helping him out here. So let's do another secure an advantage. It's another wits with a +1. Okay, we're able to get a weak hit on it. Once again, the question is, do I want to test our luck by re-rolling and adding a +2? Yeah, once again, my odds are really good of getting a better result, because I'm adding my wits, which is a 3. I'd be adding a +2 to that. So I'd be adding 5 to my die roll, meaning at minimum, I'm getting a 6 on this. I'm pretty likely to at least get another weak hit. So I feel like I might as well press my luck and try, because I could do better. Let's see. And I do. Once again, pressing my luck turns this into a strong hit. So momentum goes up by 2 again, as Emile totally finds all those types of things I was talking about. And they name Tycoon very clearly. They demonstrate the Beowulf, with timestamps around the same time, demonstrating that is the ship he is currently on. This is very recent. It has the flight log information as they're setting coordinates. It demonstrates... In particular, I think Emile also shows that his flight log shows that he was at the secret base on Cinder, and that alone would be... And that the ship was there for a long time. So it would pretty much give away the secret Vault Hunter base of Concord. He puts all this stuff together. It gives us the momentum and is definitely giving us a +1 on this compel that we need time to at least deal with the logs. And the reason this is so important to Emile is Emile is going to take that time to not only purge this stuff, but he's going to try and eventually, if this works, he wants to doctor it in the name of trying to clear Shark's name. Because he wants to leave behind like some amount of evidence of like the prisoners stealing it, but seeing if he can just wipe Shark from all of that footage. Make it seem like he was never actually here as best as he can. That's kind of my long-term plan with this and why I'm making such a thing out of it. So anyway, let's make our compel roll. It's again a heart with a +1 as he tries to argue for at least that much time. We don't get a strong hit, but we do get a weak hit. So they'll do what you want or agree to your conditions, but their agreement comes with a demand or complication. Envision their counteroffer and take +1 momentum. So let's see. I think this is going to be it's a relatively minor complication because it's not a big ask that Emile is saying. It might just be... it might just be an implied time pressure, but I think I need something a little bit more than that. I don't want to just make this a clock, because I wasn't planning on it being a bunch of moves anyway. It just being kind of resolved as 1 or maybe 2. So what's the counter offer? Because I think Emile is claiming that in order to properly delete this stuff and hide it is going to take more than just a moment of like select all, delete. Like that's something they could easily look behind and find out the previously deleted data. Maybe, what if there's something that Tycoon actually wants to be doctored into the footage as well? Like he needs, like while Emile is putting forth this idea about being particular about what's left behind, maybe Tycoon has an agenda. And the counter offer is like his own version of like, actually don't delete all of it. Maybe he has something in particular that he, like footage that they'll make on their end that they want Emile to plug in as part of a way to throw somebody else under the bus. To frame a different faction for being the ones who stole this ship or something, or at least most recently, something like that. And so, yeah, the counteroffer is like that Emile needs to work that in a naturalistic way. Yeah, I think that's an okay one. This one doesn't need to be a huge counteroffer, just a little bit of a wrinkle on it all. And maybe there'd be some reason why Emile would be hesitant to do... Oh, why don't we have it like this? Why don't we have this be something that would actually throw Grudge under the bus? You know, we know Grudge is a thief of some variety that was working on a crew. We never knew entirely what Grudge was about, or like, we knew that they were wounded from a job. We don't know the target of that job. Maybe Grudge and that whole crew, that the Zoya actually was part of as well, at least implied to be. Maybe they actually run afoul of the Vault Hunters a little bit, and they were trying to steal from the Vault Hunters. Because I imagine in the process of trying to open up these vaults, the part of this whole big treasure hunt they do, they probably have access to all kind of valuable things that they've earned. They're just well equipped, well stocked. Yeah, maybe Grudge has been a real thorn in their side, and he's looking to have Emile plant evidence that crew was actually responsible for stealing this ship. Grudge, like, it's probably not the exact crew all the time, because she's more mercenary style, it seems, but that a crew, including Grudge, was responsible, and it would wind up in her record and all of that. And I think Emile is going to agree to that. Like, it's worth it to him. Grudge isn't even actually a connection to him. They've been friendly, but I think he's going to justify it to himself in the thought that, like, Grudge seemed pretty capable, and Emile could try and make it pretty weak, and maybe even do his own thing to try and make it look like it was make it more obvious that it was doctored. He could try and kind of undermine that a little bit as he's putting it in. As just kind of oh, whoops. But that, yeah, he's been asked to insert this in there. So Emile agrees to that. I take the momentum. Now we're all the way up at a +6, which is starting to get us somewhere. Now we can actually maybe rely on momentum a little bit to help us through some amount of scraps. Not a lot. But they have a plan in motion. They need to start moving things over, bonding the ships together functionally by sending everybody over. Emile is going to be not a prisoner exactly, but definitely far more directly supervised. and he won't be in control of his destination exactly. He'll be at the whims of a captain and a crew that's not especially in love with him. But it's the best course right now. So they start that process of just moving things over. And because Emile has been given a very specific task that's a little bit technically complicated, his job is focusing on wiping the security, leaving the right things behind. It's a complicated process. And so I think Vert and Dash and various members of the Vault Hunters are tasked with the actual moving process of like just some of the various gear around here, anything that would be just helpful that Emile can think of to they're going to search the ship for anything left behind that would be especially helpful. Like they don't want to utterly ransack the ship, but anything they can find to bring over a value, like kind of the supply and stuff. Like this will probably just help justify that the Beowulf, when we get over there, maybe we can make a resupply move or something and as part of this. And that'll help justify them having a high supply themselves. So they're moving stuff over there. They're leaving the medbay behind, but they are going to be moving Emile's workshop stuff over there. That all is happening in the background while Emile's going to focus on doing this security scrubbing. As we've described, it's partly about deleting all the right things, and now partly about doctoring some footage in just the right way to find all the signs that Shark was ever on here from certain date logs that he can find, and get an algorithm working on just let's see, this is the future. I feel like there are programs that are sophisticated enough that they could indeed relatively quickly, face match him as Emile gets something, gets a source that he can use on it, and it finds that face and then just works on just doctoring the footage to like paint him out basically. And because this is a sci-fi future, it can do that relatively quickly. Again, it's going to be a matter of hours, but much easier than we would be able to do in our current life. So he gets the computer working on that, pretty much all power diverted to that because he doesn't need any minimal life support stuff. He only needs certain rooms and pathways available. He can certainly cut power to the engines. They won't need any of that. Like just so much power devoted to just the ship's computer working on just that task, as well as indeed putting in the stuff that is throwing Grudge under the bus. I'm going to do this as a couple of roles. I think in order to make good on the counter offer, Emile needs to do that part first, because if he needs to do that before there's any kind of running out of time. So I think Emile is going to face danger here to try and is with his wits and definitely with his tech asset, because he is going to try and incorporate this fake footage in such a way that it is not immediately obvious that it sticks out as being doctored footage, but that anybody of his kind of skill of like cybersecurity and anything like that, they'd definitely be able to tell that like certain metadata doesn't line up correctly. Like there would be signs that it's doctored, but you'd have to look closely. Like Tycoon would not immediately be able to tell that. So yeah, let's do that face danger wits with a +1 as Emile tries to incorporate this in just the right way. This is a wits with a +1 session. All right, we get a strong hit on that. You're successful and take +1 momentum. So yeah, Emile sets that up. He has done that part of it. He knows comfortably that if they get the opportunity to look deeply into this, somebody will be able to tell, or at the very least, if it ever came down to a legal defense, Grudge's legal defense could figure that out and determine like, hey, clearly that's doctored. He's only throwing Grudge so much under the bus. But even the investigative team of the Imperium might determine that and throw out the case. Now, there is a mild problem with that, because that does make it clear that some footage is doctored. So like that could draw their attention to other signs of it. But at least he can get rid of any indications of Shark. But he needs to do this just right, because obviously he can't just have everything deleted except that one little thing that implicates Grudge and like demonstrates her having been part of stealing this ship. Which I wonder what that even looks like. Is that video footage? Is that flight log information? I'm not so sure right now. Maybe I'll think on that more between sessions of what exactly that package is that incriminates Grudge. But he needs to make it seem like this is actual footage from the ship and logs and stuff, but doctored to be completely different stuff. So it takes him some time. I think Emile is going to And I'm just gonna do. I was wondering if I was going to do secure an advantage as he like forms a plan on like putting together reasonable flight paths and stuff that make sense. But I think rather than keep fishing for that secure an advantage, I'm just gonna do this all as one roll. So this is again a face danger as he just tries to incorporate this important stuff. Like, can he indeed work to clear Shark's name by getting him out of the footage, and also as part of this, like, not give away Cinder as the planet that this ship ever went to. Because that would be a real problem for Emile as well. They'll be heading back there, and he doesn't want the Imperium to be waiting. So, the maybe final of our Wits with a +1 face dangers, as Emile incorporates the last of this kind of data curation to set up this ship as they are finishing moving all the stuff over, and he's about ready to move on to the Beowulf for his more permanent home. And this one is a miss. You fail, or momentary success is undermined by a dire turn of events. Pay the price. So I think the price here is that, much as Emile wants to, like, he diverts all this power, but there's just so much to prune Shark from, there's just not enough time. Even the fast sci-fi computer can only doctor this footage so quickly. And so it gets Shark out of some of it, but he's not able to, like, the progress bar is still, it's only at like 60% when it's undermined by the dire turn of events of, I'm going to say, they've been parked next to this low radiating sun for a long time, but still enough, and Emile hasn't been specifically trying to, like, hold it all inside. He's been focused on other things. As he is working on doctoring this footage, suddenly he loses control of the EMP inside of his body. And he's trying to hold it in, and he can't, and it lets loose a blast that wipes his computer, like it powers it all off mid-process. He is not able to, getting this all back online would be longer than they anticipate having. His ship is off. He can maybe, because the engines were, no power was going to the engines or anything, could maybe get this thing coasting towards the blockade in a relatively short order. But getting the computers back online and everything, that's beyond him. And so the real pay the price of all this is, one, he certainly didn't get to advance clearing Shark's name, but also I'm going to roll on some oracles to determine what did get, like, was there time to wipe certain things on here? Like, how much did he take care of? Because some things are getting deleted and some things are being doctored. So let's roll some oracles. Did this process, before the blast went off and interrupted it midway, and this is something Emile would maybe tangentially know because he was watching kind of what was happening in the background. So the first and biggest question, I think, is there still evidence that of the base on Cinder? Or did Emile make different flight logs before this happened? Here's the way I'm going to do this. Every time I ask a question, it's going to get less and less likely, because I'm going to try and do these in the order of, I think, Emile's priority. Priority 1, I think, was indeed Cinder. It would just be too much of a problem if they found out about that. So likely for that he likely had enough time to finish that. Did he? Is that information pruned? Yes. Okay. He got through that. So the next thing is going to be on a 50-50. And that's going to be the Shark stuff. Actually, I guess we know that was specifically what he was trying to do. So he can't have gotten through the Shark stuff because that was a miss. So it's got to be something else. On a 50-50, is there anything left in the logs that specifically ties Emile to this ship? Like, or is he deleted from the footage? Because anything after a certain point he could have just deleted. It's the Shark stuff he wants to specifically doctor. So, is there any indication of Emile's presence on this ship? 50-50. No. And based on the way I asked that, I said, is there any presence? I guess that means, yeah, he did actually get through all of that as well. At this point, anything left would be unlikely. Let's see, what else might he have been trying to scrub from here? Oh, yeah, I mean, I guess any interactions with Beowulf and Tycoon. Like, Emile was not prioritizing that at all. Is there still indications of this ship's meeting with the Beowulf? Or rather, because this is unlikely, I gotta phrase it differently. Did Emile get to deleting indications of the meeting with Beowulf and Tycoon? No. So that stuff is still on there. And I think Emile knows that. Emile knows that he deprioritized that, and there are still links between those ships. Perhaps the exact location of that meeting is a little more ambiguous, but like the outside footage that he demonstrated in the package that just shows that this ship and the Beowulf once kind of clearly docked at a station and like had an interaction, all that evidence, that part is still there. There's some breadcrumbs to follow there, and Emile's not going to have the chance to fix that. But at this point, he's got to leave it all behind. He says goodbye to the ship. He tells Fern at this point about the news. He and Fern are heading over to their new home on the Beowulf with just like a box of their... Emile has kind of, a crate of his personal effects that he's bringing over. There's not a lot, considering this wasn't like originally his ship or anything. I am certainly going to change the name on our command vehicle from Stardust to Beowulf, as that is going to be our new ship. But as for how well the Beowulf with everybody assembled onto it is going to be able to bypass this blockade, you know what I'm about to say. That's a question for next time. It just goes to show you how you never know exactly what's going to happen in this game. I definitely anticipated getting through more. I did not figure that we wouldn't even get past the blockade at the end of this episode, but sometimes you give it a little bit more time to the minutia, and sometimes you more broad strokes it, and I think this was an important enough obstacle that it was worth really considering the specifics of how are they going to get around this in a reasonable way. And I definitely did not anticipate the idea of the Stardust not being the vehicle anymore, but I kind of like that turn. I think this is going to be a new interesting thing where no longer is Emile on a pretty bare-bones ship. Like, this is a big one. This is truly a command vehicle with a big crew. Lots of opportunities for different characters for him to interact with. You might find some people that are more friendly, more not. Like, there are going to be a lot of people on this ship, and I look forward to getting a chance to explore that a little bit more and meeting some of them, finding out what new drama this leads to or not. Like, is this the beginning of Emile just slowly becoming more and more of a Vault Hunter? Who knows? His primary thing still is about VY572, even if he's got just pressing matters at all times. But I tell you, I haven't done one of these in a long time, but now that we are going to be on a new ship with a new crew, I would love some help populating this ship with some new interesting people. So if you are a listener who has got characters that you've had in Starforged before that you think could fit in this universe and would be a cool person to be a Vault Hunter, I would love to incorporate them into this ship. So send me your ideas for your own Vault Hunter, whether it's a character you've played before or somebody you've generated. Use whatever oracles you'd like to get there, but send your ideas to me at starforgedpod@gmail.com. I'd love to incorporate a few fan characters in here. I can't promise that they'll necessarily be the most prominent people on here, but now that we're going to have a lot of people at all times on the crew, I'd love to flesh this out a little bit more. Send me your ideas. Again, starforgedpod@gmail.com. I think it would just be really cool to be able to get some more characters on here. But with that out of the way, play me out, music.